Aloha, mamas. I honestly forgot to put my headphones in at first. Welcome to the Mama Mindset Podcast, episode number 13. This is one I've been thinking about recording mostly for myself. I think it is a form of validation, and in all transparency, it's been something I've been kind of struggling to sit down and articulate, although it's something I live out every single day and something that is so deeply ingrained upon my heart, and just the way that I live out my life, the place that I go to for the aloha that I exude to people, and for the faith and the love that I'm able to share, and for the vision, the dreams that have been divinely dropped into me, and my conviction that I am a chosen daughter of the King. And I wanted to today talk about my spirituality. Spirituality is something I think is so exciting and sacred to talk about, because spirituality is a part of us. It's an essential component of our health, and we are all truly worshiping something. So I'm really excited today to start unpacking what spirituality means to me and where it lands with you. I also want to say I'm so sensitive and reverent of other people's spirituality, because for me, it is such a sacred invitation to talk about what is sacred, what is reverent, and where does someone else align spiritually. It could be that you identify with a religion, and that's something that resonates more with you. For me, I've always felt more spiritual, more of an individual alignment than part of like a group, or worshiping or coming forward in a religious way. And for me, my spiritual journey started really young. I loved staying up like late writing poems, and I can remember just feeling, even as I do now, like that urge to create and to connect that would happen late at night. And often that's what I'm doing here with the podcast and the love letters that I send you guys in the weekly waves, you ladies. Again, I will always correct myself on the guys thing, because this is a community of women, of mothers, of visionaries, of artists. And we often say that, but that's kind of a socially ingrained thing. And maybe there's some guys watching it, so hi to the guys, but mostly it's the mamas. And in my early childhood, I remember having pretty severe anxiety over things, just worrying a lot, feeling the gravity of a lot of heavy things that, 4, 5, 6-year-olds are normally maybe a little more carefree. And I think that a couple of things in retrospect might have played into that. I had really poor eyesight, which was diagnosed around age 6. And so perhaps like not being able to really see, I'm extremely nearsighted, so I can't see things at a distance. And so maybe that started at a young age, and not being able to see well in my environment, but not being able to articulate that clearly to my parents or caregivers, played into some feelings of, anxiety about where I was and what was going on around me, and that feeling of a little bit of helplessness and just sensing danger. But I remember having tremendous peace. At that point in my life, we were going to a Southern Baptist church that my grandma went to, and it was this red brick building and on a oak-lined street in my hometown of Winter Park, Florida. And I just loved the community there. I loved we would have Wednesday night family dinners, and we had church trips that were super fun to go on. And we were just together, and there was a commitment to being together and to fellowshipping and eating together. And those are the elements that I feel aligned with in a church, is the community and showing up for each other, not necessarily the tendency of humans to want to belong to a group or the fact that we will let each other down because we're all humans and we all make mistakes. And so sometimes I feel like in the church setting, we're like, oh, well, I was betrayed there. I wasn't treated well there. And honestly, I don't place that much weight on like organized religion because it is like a glorified club where we're all, looking to belong and feeling comfort in the familiarity of different rules that we've established. And that's why there's so many different flavors for me when I look at Christianity. None of them are wrong or bad. And if it helps somebody and elevates their life, then I think that's a beautiful thing. But anyway, I remember going to the Southern Baptist Church growing up, and at age 6, having a clear desire with a lot of clarity that I wanted to be baptized, that I knew I was chosen, and that I knew that I wanted to enter into a relationship with my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Like I knew that that was something I wanted to do, not because it was something I watched other people in the church do, although we had this cool like second story balcony thing where there was this curtains. The Baptists are really good at sort of like grandiose gestures and counting the number of attendances. And now I find that just endearingly humorous a little bit. But so I remember this second story kind of like jacuzzi spa pool where the baptisms would happen, and there would be this curtain that was drawn back, and everybody in the service that day would be down below looking up at this window at the preacher and the person who was coming that day to be baptized. And I remember I was so excited to wear my bathing suit under my dress to church that day. And it really wasn't to please anyone or to belong. It was just a clear channel that I felt like I had this freedom, this intuition that was, no, I'm ready to publicly, declare that I know that I want to dedicate my life to Jesus. And it was very simple for me, but very profound. And I remember my parents and other people, adults around me being like, are you sure you know what this means? Or are you sure you're ready? And I was so sure. I was a little bit nervous just because, again, like the 6-year-old in me was, didn't love like crowds or a lot of attention on her, just more of a shy demeanor at that time, which again, now I'm realizing is some of my superpowers. If you go back a couple episodes and listen to the tune into your too much at that time in my life, as I was really starting to tune into hearing repeatedly, like you're too shy. And at that time, I thought that was a bad thing. But I've always been here in my head and my beautiful thoughts, my beautiful dreams, my beautiful desires. And now I really claim that space and I really honor that. And I'm really reverent toward it. And that's part of my superpower. And so I remember practicing the week before with the pastor of our church, who was also a friend of the family. And he lived a block away from us on our lake that I grew up on. And I got to practice like being baptized in the lake next to the dock and just going through the motions of what it would be like, so I wouldn't be as nervous on that Sunday. And that meant a lot to me. And so I can just remember this peace coming over me. And it wasn't this supernatural thing that was like, okay, I'm dipped in the water and raised to walk in the newness of life, which are the words that are kind of uttered to you during the baptism process. And it's a symbolic act of, being dunked underwater and then coming up a new person that has chosen to allow Jesus into his or her life, and how that will change you forever going forward. And I feel compelled to offer that the baptism is a wonderful, visible act of your devotion and your love and your commitment to that lifestyle. But it's also even deeper than that for me. It's more of an acceptance of that invitation that Jesus wants this kind of life of freedom, of fulfillment, of blessing, of prosperity for me. And I knew that. And I didn't need a baptism in a church to show that. And I don't think that that's something that people have to do. In fact, I don't think that there's anything that you have to do to gain access to a relationship with Jesus other than faith and belief. And I think I could talk, about this a lot, but for me, it is a spiritual space of freedom and faith and living into your highest calling and your highest good. And there's no act that you need to do or set of rules that you need to follow to gain entrance into that. It's more about a freedom and a free space. That time in my life, I was 6 years old, and this is what I was being shown. But I did have some intuition in my body and knowledge in my soul, even as a young girl, that I was chosen, and that this was something that I could do, maybe to inspire other people or just to validate myself. But that feeling and that calling was already strong in me. So I wouldn't say that like came out of the water and, everything was totally different. I already felt, chosen and protected and called. And I think that gave me a lot of peace in my life growing up. And so I've always known who I am in my faith. I've always known that I am a chosen daughter of the King, and that I am highly favored, and that I want other people to experience this joy and this peace, because that is the gift of this faith and of this spirituality, at least in my experience, is a peace, knowing, and you'll hear me talking a lot about vertical awe, and it may mean something different to you. And I also hold space for that. And this is in no way meant to, be like an altar call, because you'll hear me talk a little bit more about organized religion. It's just a willingness for me to be vulnerable with myself and to you about what spirituality means to me. And I think spirituality is at the core of who we are as women and as visionaries. And I am convinced that we are all worshiping something. It's just it is the way we are made. It's the way we are wired. We will look oftentimes horizontally and give our allegiance and our worship and our awe and our reverence to many things, like that spiritual energy that we have. And I think it is of vital importance to protect that energy and to place it into something that is uplifting, that is inspiring, that challenges you, and that reminds you that you are good and you are magnificent and you are chosen and you are whole and you are healed and you are blessed. And whatever it is for you that that gives you that peace, that's your spirituality. And that is beautiful, beautiful thing. It's an amazing flavor of your life, and something that, I would invite you to marinate in and nourish yourself with every single day. I do. And I can share more about my process with that. And so as I was, growing up, I always knew who I was. And I grew up in the Southern Baptist Church and later in a Presbyterian church, which was affiliated with the private Christian school that I went to, and my sister did too. She went all the way through high school. I went through 8th grade. And I didn't love middle school. I loved studying the Bible and kind of being like a biblical scholar, because I've always loved history and archaeology and just understanding the context of the ancient world and all of the collision of religions. And I loved hearing and learning about like Greek mythology and how that bled into the Roman Empire. And they adopted many of those different gods and goddesses. And the Roman culture, I loved reading about Egyptian culture and their different gods and goddesses, and how I just found it fascinating in Mesopotamia and the ancient Near East, how a lot of their deities and their spiritual presence was found, understandably, in nature and in appealing to different gods and goddesses that they had for prosperity in their lives and in their health and in their crops and just their way of life. And so I love studying religions. I still to this day love doing that, and spirituality. I love trying to understand cultures and people. And it's part of the empath in me that wants and has a deep desire to validate other people. And I feel like in order to do that, for me, is to go on a personal odyssey and quest to understanding the components of their spirituality, of their religion, and being able to hold space for that. And I don't feel the least bit threatened into my own spirituality in that way, because I think it's part of my calling is to understand, and not to force conversion or tell people who's right or who's wrong. That is not my place. My feet are firmly rooted in the ground and in who I am, but also equally as firmly rooted in not judging people or persuading people, but honoring people where they're coming from, what's important to them. And that's truly important to me. And so I love having these conversations, and that growing conviction in me was really illustrated, I think, in the bravery and courage that I had to tell my parents in 8th grade that I no longer wanted to attend a Christian school. It wasn't for me. It started to feel extremely claustrophobic. I wanted to experience people of different religious backgrounds than I wanted to have conversations about their religion, their spirituality, what it meant to them, and learn more and be a minority amongst other people. It was a pretty homogenous environment in my private Christian school, and that's neither wrong nor bad, and that works for some people, but I felt very stifled there. And I think I've mentioned before in my anxiety that I felt in middle school, and just my choice not to belong to the different like girl groups and cliques that can happen in middle school, and just like my total decision to just like dissociate from any of the female microaggressions that happen during puberty and can happen with emotional and hormonal shifts and at all ages in women. We have such a superpower, but sometimes we really congregate in our different feelings of inadequacy and fear and transition times to groups, and we feel really a lot of power in those groups. But I just like chose not to belong to any of those, and to play soccer in recess, and to spend my time like reading ahead in our Bible book and learning more about Latin, which I think then played into my love for medicine, still does. And so it was, I just felt like I didn't need to be at a Christian school or even at church to know who I was, and that wasn't something that I needed to be spiritually fed. And this was really the beginning of me coming into my spirituality and just knowing this is who I am. This is how I'm made. This is the fabric of what my soul is. And my soul has always felt connected in interacting and having empathy and holding space for other people. And the invitation to know about their spirituality is such an honor for me, because it is such a part of ourselves that is evolving perhaps, but also that we guard so closely because we are afraid of rejection or judgment around it. And this episode is me. I have in my life guarded my spirituality close to my heart, because it is a place of solace. It is a place of sacred surrender for me. And it has been a place that I have eclipsed, for also various chapters in my life. And it's a place that now feels stronger and more vivid and more vibrant than maybe perhaps ever. I feel like I'm back in that 6-year-old girl who knew without any question. And she had fun with it, and she played with it, and she just was free in it. And I think that after many years, I'm back in that same space. And I'll share with you the journey there. And so in high school, I did go to a public school in my town that my parents had actually gone to. And I got to do the International Baccalaureate program, which was a rigorous academic program. But more than that, it exposed me for the first time in my life to such a diversity of a friend group and people. And I was enthralled at talking to my Muslim friends and my Hindu friends and atheist friends and people just of extremely different cultures, backgrounds, religions, spiritualities than myself. And it was so powerful and so moving and so challenging for me to start to gather their stories and their backgrounds and their experiences and what was important to them, and start to synthesize a new understanding. And I loved it so much. And I felt more at home in my own spirituality than ever, than in all my years of Christian school and church. And during high school and ensuing in college, I was really busy on weekends with soccer. And so there was less time for like Sunday attendance at church. And it was this point in my life too, that I was really inviting in the knowledge that I feel it's important to stay spiritually nourished and to seek your own individual relationship in my sense, in my spirituality with Jesus, who dwells in my heart. And the Holy Spirit is like a coach. It's literally like a life coach, this amazing intuition that is I'm synchronized with because of my choice to accept Jesus in my heart. And it is wonderful to surround yourself with people that are uplifting. And that could happen in a church environment or a small group or something like that. But it could also happen with people, in my experience and in my opinion and how I feel as a human, of vastly different religious and spiritual upbringings than you. I think when you're sure about who you are and how you're made and what is important to you spiritually and what you hold sacred, it isn't threatened by things or people or experiences different than you. It's strengthened because you hold empathy and you share experiences and you're willing to be challenged and you're willing to feel different theological questions and talk about the different borders of the human soul and questions that we wrestled with for thousands of years and millennia across cultures and civilizations. And so this birth of me spiritually in high school was really nourished in this environment. And it continued in college at Miami, where I was again like a minority, both from a socioeconomic standpoint and also just in this space of playing soccer in college and also pursuing a neuroscience master's degree. So I did find like a church home that I went to sometimes, and I had a Athletes in Action, which was a Christian-based group of like athletes that we get together. And so I found some community in those experiences. But most of the people I gravitated toward in high school and in college and beyond and to this day don't come from a religious organized background that is at all similar to mine. And this is just the way I'm made as a human. And I no longer like find fault with it or judge it. I just know that and go with the flow about it. I know that I'm made this way to connect and to empathize. And then there was a huge chapter in my life through medicine that, and I still am. I come here today as a physician and a healer and a pediatrician, a sports medicine physician. And for me, God is the great physician, right? He made our bodies in the beginning whole and healed. And there is a brokenness in this world through sin, and we all suffer. I do believe that suffering is a choice, though. There is a clean pain. Like we will all struggle. We will all have varying physical ailments. Our bodies will fail us. We will experience pain in this life. But I also find a lot of comfort in knowing that the author of creation of this world, the maker of me, chooses to allow me to go through various trials. And through those, I can experience clean pain. It's not to say that I'm not human and I don't question things and I don't struggle, but I can choose to look at it like it's an opportunity to advance my character and to persevere and to become more Christ-like and become more like Jesus, who in my experience and my joy in knowing him and having a personal relationship with him, he came and he was born here as a baby. And I've recently become, I think, complacent. Familiarity breeds complacency. And I think growing up and being exposed to the Christmas story and Jesus being born and him ministering all of his life and performing miracles and then dying on the cross, it was a story that, I'm grateful that I was exposed to from a young age. And I knew, I think all humans, we tend toward, when we're so familiar with something, it kind of loses its magic. If you went to Disney every day, it might not seem as magical, but this is truly the most mind-blowing story that could ever have occurred. And no human could have ever written the story this way. And he came and he willingly suffered and marched himself every single day of his life toward the cross and toward ultimate rejection and ultimate torture and ultimate betrayal by humanity. And he did that so that we could live in union with God the Father and with Jesus, and we would have the Holy Spirit in us, this coach. I like to think of it as like a life coach and benevolent life energy that connects us, and that is a deposit of what is to come. And we are uncomfortable here because this is not our final destination, but we're also put here to have fun and to flow in life and to feel free and to enjoy and not to judge. And so for me, I try to look at different trials in my life that come as an opportunity for clean pain. They're an opportunity for me to look up, and to say, what do you have for me in this season of life, and how can I live through it instead of victimizing myself and going low vibe on everything? How can I gain perspective, and why have you chosen this particular struggle for me? What can I learn from this? How can I learn from this? And this perspective has really allowed me to shed like anxiety and fear, because I'm not immune to those emotions, but I know that I can come into a place of neutrality and know that I am supported, I am loved, I am chosen, and I am held in all of those scenarios, even more so in those challenging scenarios. And going through high school, college, and beyond, and then in medical school, there was a lot of exposure to, in medicine, there are some of the smartest people, the most gifted, brilliant people that I've ever met in my life, and many mentors, many teachers, many patients, and many of the life and death and the gravity of situations that I was a part of, serving and healing and in medicine and seeing sickness and death and deep suffering. Medicine is the study of health, and you delve into the deepest understanding of biochemistry and the cells and the way the human body works. And for me, this all echoed that there is more. There is a creator, this order, this tendency for the body to want to heal itself, this homeostasis, that all of the feedback systems in the body, like, it is massively incredible. And this was all created by our creator. There is a lot of like atheism in medicine. And I think a lot during my medical school years, and then even in residency and fellowship and beyond, I knew who I was for sure in my soul. I always identified with my spirituality and felt comfort in that. And the moments of really physical and mental and emotional exhaustion that came with that chapter, it was a comfort to me, but it was something I held most fiercely private, perhaps, during this time. And I've never considered myself like a quote evangelist, and I likely never will, which it just doesn't work for the flavor of who I am as a human to like be out there, I guess witnessing or evangelizing is kind of a religious term, I think, for me, and for people that works for them, that's, great. I just feel that living into my true self, my authentic self, this flavor of vulnerability that I'm coming here in Mama Mindset, this was something exciting and important to share with you, because it does shape who I am as a person and why I show up the way I do. So I felt like it was time to sit down and have this cheers coffee life chat and invite you more into your spirituality. And I'd love to hear more about that too. And I hold space for that for you, Mama, because I perhaps no more do we feel chosen, called, and this supernatural sense of transcending, the space that is here in the earthly realm when we become mamas. Like pregnancy and labor and delivery and holding that newborn, and all along the chapter of motherhood, you feel it. You feel the divine dreams being dropped into you. You feel called and chosen. There is more. And whatever that more means for you is important to tap into, because that is your intuition, your mama tuition, your spirituality. You'll hear me talk about the vertical all. That is your invitation to live in this vertical sense of self and spirituality. And that is your guide. That is your North Star. That is your compass. And it allows you to move past all of the noise of the world and the different things that you give your allegiance to and the different things that we tend to worship along the way. It's not bad or wrong. It's just wonderful to cultivate that awareness, because we will never find success. I don't hesitate to use the word success. We'll never find fulfillment, meaning, or peace, or joy, or prosperity, or any of it that's waiting to flow into our lives, looking horizontally, whether it's salary or career. And for a long time, I definitely looked towards my career in medicine for that fulfillment. Like, okay, when I get to this finish line, like then it's going to come, and it's been this season of surrender for me and returning back to that 6-year-old girl that knew, and reaccessing that passion within me that's always known who I am, and that my faith is not forced, but it flows freely within me. And that version of myself, she's the most free. She's the most aligned with who she's made to be and how she's meant to show up. And she's the most at home with herself. And that version of me accesses my highest forms of empathy that I'm able to provide for others in my life. It helps me access eternal aloha and patience and perspective and all of the things I think that allow me to show up in a way that is most impactful for other people. And it is the version of me that I hope is able to leave a legacy and inspire other people and hold space for the healing that we crave as fellow humans, as fellow mamas. And to have these conversations that we all want, that go deeper than the surface level into the spiritual. And that's what I want for Mama Mindset. I want it to be a spiritual place. I see it as a spiritual space. You feel the spiritual in your life. And I have many dear friends, sisters, fellow mamas, soul sisters, soulmates, that most of them are extremely different from me in a spiritual way. And it doesn't, for me, put any space between us. I think our ability to share with each other where we come from and how we're aligned is strength. And it is such a sacred privilege to me to be invited into that space, just like it is when I take care of your babies. And when I cross into those labor and delivery rooms and I see you and the mamas just tapping into that supernatural spiritual sense of who they are and why they're created, you literally get to co-create life and nurture that life in your body and bring it forth. Or if you become a mama by other means, we are all tapping into that spiritual sense of who we are and getting to nurture these lives. And we do that largely from a spiritual space. And so finding yourself spiritually, recommitting to what it is that spiritually nourishes you is of massive importance. And it might be the single greatest way to practice radical compassion for yourself. And so for me, in recent years, spirituality has really emerged as a core, if not the core component of who I am and how I show up. For example, when I come and prepare for these, and again, I don't really prepare in the sense of I have no script or no like predetermined agenda, but to drop into that nourishment, I journal. Well, first I do movement as medicine because I just love the fact that I get to move my body. So I'll hop on the Peloton and do a workout, which now is some kind of cycling workout. I also have been doing shadow boxing, but usually it's a cycling workout. And then I'll do a post-ride cool down, which again, I've told you mamas that I used to never oh my gosh, I'm not going to do a cool down or a stretch because ain't nobody got time for that. But now it's just like a reverent way of showing up for my body. So I do a cool down and watch that heart rate decrease, and I stretch, and then I do a core workout and a meditation. And then I'll do my journaling and reading of the word or the Bible. But for me, that this study of the Bible is this amazing way that I just get to read these words that I realize are written by humans and handed down and transcribed over time. So it's got like lots of mistakes and things lost in interpretation. And I will never be somebody that defends the Bible as this like infallible work. But I do see it as like a portal and an invitation to studying like ancient cultures and the evolution of Christianity over time. And it's fascinating to me. I had the archaeological Bible. And so I love the parallels and how it'll talk about all of the other religions that were contemporary at the time and how that influenced Christianity and vice versa. And so I absolutely have been having the best time, like reading Old and New Testament and this other devotional book that I have that it's just like mentally really stimulating. It's spiritually really stimulating. And then I might do some other writing. And right now I've been reading medical texts because I'm jumping back into clinical practice soon this summer. And then I hop on here and it's like this video diary. And I just love what comes out and these live chats that we get to have. And so this is definitely unscripted and unedited, but it has been on my heart to challenge myself, I think, to come and articulate here what spirituality means to me and where I'm coming from when you hear me talk about vertical awe. And that concept for me is one of the most core in my life right now, because when I am in vertical alignment, for me, it's a spiritual sense of groundedness here on earth and with heaven above and the creator who made me, and being divinely chosen and listening to that call and this space of mama mindset that gets to be a ministry to other mamas, that gets to be this space where I hold sacred whatever spirituality is for you, truly meeting you there and validating that and hearing you and seeing you and marveling at you and who you are as a spiritual being. You are a spiritual being, whether you subscribe or have a formal religion or a formal sense of spirituality or you don't. We are all spiritual people. Maybe your spirituality is getting out in nature and just enjoying hikes and hearing the laughter of your children. Or I think spirituality is really found in those moments where you're experiencing pure joy and you are unplugging from the horizontal noise that happens. So it's just inviting yourself into what allows you to access more, what allows you to feel both grounded, but also limitless and effortless, and that you are chosen. And so here in Mama Mindset, in the spirituality, this community of spirituality, literally worldwide, there are mamas in here of every religion, organized religion, and who have been brought up in different faith systems. And all of those are a part of the fabric of who we are. And now at this phase in our life, as we start to then think about our children and we want them to be spiritually healthy, or we want them to be able to explore that too. It's this really cool and glorious period of reevaluation of what we were, exposed to growing up. And I'm grateful for those experiences in the Southern Baptist Church and the Presbyterian Church. And I had some family members that I think were Methodist preachers. So just different forms for me always of Christianity. And also times where we weren't active, in the church. But for me, that spirituality sense remained. And we have a church that we love here in Maui. I definitely gravitate to like a non-denominational Christian environment, because for me, the nuances between different parts of Christianity aren't how I feel honor my faith system the most. And if I'm being completely transparent and honest, which I will be, church isn't an essential part of my faith system. I do feel, surrounding myself with people who can uplift me and challenge me is important. And I'm fully open to that. But oftentimes in my experience as a Christian, and my faith system has been inherently strengthened being around people who are vastly different from me, who come from different religions, different faith-based systems, different spiritualities. And I have felt myself grow more in those environments oftentimes than in the church. And so I think that we are strengthened by our differences. And I think that's true in motherhood as well. Like we do not have the same experiences. And that's why I love Mama Mindset. And I see it as a global initiative, supporting mamas across every geographic boundary, across every different religion, every ethnicity, every time zone, every sense of spirituality. And it is this sacred space of spirituality where we meet, because accessing the divine in us that was encoded into our DNA of becoming mamas, and believing in that, believing in that supernatural superpowers of our mama tuition and the Mamamentum that we have, and moving forward together. That is part of our spirituality. And also part of it is how do we feel we transcend this world? What is it that calls to your soul? What is it that feels right to you? And there, if I'm being also totally authentic, there are elements of other religions that really speak to me and I really resonate with. I think there are the common core of kind of Judaism and Christianity and Muslim or Arabic from Arabic countries, and the way Islam has evolved is fascinating to me. And they're all like a monotheistic type of spirituality. And I love that. And I find a lot of commonalities in there. I just read my daughter in my mosque this children's book that was so beautiful about mosques. And I find so much beauty in Islam. And I find so much beauty in Judaism and the way that they celebrate and honor like all of the Old Testament traditions. And I've been really loving uncovering that side of my spirituality. For me, in Buddhism and honoring nature and the peace that it exudes is so profound and so attractive and so loving. It feels right. I love that. And in the Hinduism, I feel so aligned with the way that they treat each other and on all of the celebrations that they have. On our honeymoon in Bali, we were invited to go to a Hindu temple ceremony with some friends we made. And it was one of the coolest experiences for me, just reverence of being able to be invited and be a guest in these spiritual spaces has been so expansive in my life. And so those are just some examples, but I'm learning more all the time about that Hawaiian culture and the spirituality that's inherent in Native Hawaiians and the way that they revere the land and how the spirit of aloha came and is fascinating and part of my everyday life, and something that has helped me in serving patients and families is understanding that a little bit better. Native Americans in our, who were here long before us in the United States, the country that I was born into and raised in, and the way that they harmonized with nature is profoundly beautiful and something that we can take from. I love learning about ancient and present day Japanese and Chinese and Eastern cultures here in Hawaii. That's something easier to access. And then my husband being half Filipino, and really there's just that, the Catholicism that is in many, many parts of the world. And so I have many Catholic friends. I actually went to Catholic kindergarten and was super bummed when my parents told me I was switching schools. I remember running away wearing my like Catholic schoolgirl uniform, my plaid skirt and white shirt. And I think I like hid out in a tree for as many hours as I could before I got hungry and had to like surrender and go home. But just this exposure. And I think it's so important that we expose ourselves to many different formal religions and spiritualities, because it helps you land on your own more, contrary to the fact that I think we're taught or maybe suggested societally that, that could be a threat to it. I disagree. I think that honoring and validating other people's spirituality is one of the strongest ways that we can show up for one another, and that we can cement in ourselves what spirituality means for us. I feel that spirituality is an intensely personal and individual journey. It's a form of self-actualization. If you remember the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's a pyramid, and at the bottom is kind of your basic needs, of which the base is probably, I think it is safety, and then, food and shelter. And then as you work your way up and you get to the pyramid, the top part of the pyramid is self-actualization. And that's, to me, what that means is just validating yourself and living it into your the spiritual sense of who you are. And I think that comes from being willing to journey through what's out there in this world and what's being offered. And so I think religion, can be very powerful, but oftentimes it's organized and it's infused with a lot of our tendencies as humans to want to belong and to establish a set of rules and to have order. And none of those are wrong or bad, but sometimes it can not be as honoring of a person's individual pursuit. And so I think spirituality is intensely more individual and sacred to align yourself and know who you are. And then you can plug into a more organized religion if it serves you in a way that is, I think, honoring of yourself and your own space, so that you can be more effective in that religious environment while also honoring yourself. And so for me, motherhood has been such a rebirth as a human, as a woman, as a visionary, as a spiritual being, and as a human being. And I've done a lot more human being than human doing lately, if you will. Like I have lived chapters of my life, many chapters, being a human doing. And that version of me, I applaud her, and she accomplished so many incredible things that I claim, and that those were necessary for me to go through and endure. But it was also exhausting, and it was also, I wasn't experiencing as much peace in those chapters because I was so busy, like more in the horizontal space, just accomplishing and chasing after dreams and being really busy, so in that time, pursuing like neuroscience degree while playing 4 years of college soccer. And there were little sparks in there that my spirituality, obviously she shone through. The empathy in me, like when I look back at college, the best part was the spiritual side of me, which she emerged in finding commonalities with all of her teammates, all of the diverse backgrounds and belief systems and motivations and desires of those women that I went to college with. And that validation and those conversations and that faith and belief and passion to connect on an authentic level with all of my teammates, from that was born my opportunity to be team captain and being chosen team captain junior and senior year. And that was more important to me, more valuable to me, and has persevered in my heart with deep gratitude, much more than any statistics, games played. And I mean, the competitive side of me, was always taking into account like how many goals scored and assists and all of the things that it takes to, be a successful athlete. And then in medical school, in an environment of intense competition and rigorous, academic requirements. And I think medical school can best be described as, it's not so much that it's so extremely hard, although for sure it's challenging. It is the volume of information that one needs to master in the short amount of time that you're given to do it. Like the learning curve is so steep. And I think that's maybe the most challenging part of it. So it is a forged by the fire type of environment. And again, that empathetic spiritual side of me, when she came out during medical school and connected with her peers and was able to establish, I think, an aura of non-competition, because I truly believed that everyone would find their own place within medicine, because it's almost like the sorting hat. You get into medicine, but then everybody's going off in their different directions. Like my friends from medical school are everything now, from dermatologists to radiologists to orthopedic surgeons to neurosurgeons, pediatricians, family medicine doctors, psychiatrists, all of it, right? There's so many branches of medicine. And I was fascinating for me to see people starting to plug into what they were called to pursue: emergency medicine, all of it. And so I never felt the competition with my peers. I just felt a desire to get to know these remarkable humans with their diverse backgrounds that had, landed here in medicine with their calling to serve through medicine. And, so of course, like passing board exams and doing well in medical school and succeeding in those measures, like I had the competitive side that propelled me through all of that. But it was my spiritual side. And again, that shone. And probably the most memorable moment of medical school for me was receiving the Patch Adams Award as voted by my medical school classmates and now colleagues serving in every area of the country and over the world. And the Patch Adams Award was based on that movie with Robin Williams, where he basically was an award most likely to make her patients smile. And so it was something about me that my peers, these brilliant colleagues recognized that in me was this ability, innate desire and ability to connect, to empathize, and to bring humor even in the gravity of situations that would come forward. And so that to me is one of the greatest honors, and I'll be forever indebted to my classmates and have a desire to make them proud that was something that they saw in me. And even I can back up even further, because I've shared with you from now medical school with the Patch Adams Award, and then college with the team captain at Miami, and then in high school I was part of the International Baccalaureate program, which I mentioned allowed me exposure to this just amazingly beautiful, diverse group of people who really ignited in me this sense of spirituality and really showed me a world beyond what I had known in a smaller Christian school environment growing up. And I'm so indebted to them for opening that window of curiosity and fascination for me at the world of cultural, religious, and just diversity in general. And those people changed the trajectory of my life forever. And I absolutely loved being an IB nerd, as we were called. And I loved being an Eek the Geek and all of the things that came with my alignment and fascination with learning. Like, I will be a lifelong learner. I love it. I think many people along my path have not understood just my quest for knowledge, and it will never fade. And it's something that I really honor now and claim now. And so then I was also straddling the world of athletics and being really involved in soccer. And I went to a large public high school. And so just having people, for me, one of my favorite things was just having people from various social circles and pockets. And I didn't belong to any one group in high school. And that's something that I've continued that trend throughout my life. I just love to be challenged by people that are different than me. And so in high school, I got the award of like most likely to succeed for a female. And at the time, success to me as a high schooler meant, going to college. And so I thought, okay, there was always a people pleaser side of me. Like, hopefully I made those Winter Park Wildcats proud, going to college in Miami, even though people are like, you are going to Miami. It's a party school, right? And I literally hardly drank in college, but I was going out almost every night. Like, so I've always been a partier who just hasn't really aligned with alcohol, but I'm there for the party because I'm there for the social aspect, and I love to be around people, but I also really honor my innate introvert now. Anyway, so I thought, okay, I've kind of fulfilled that criteria of most likely to succeed. And, I claimed the different paths along the way of college soccer and neuroscience and medicine, and my career in medicine. what I didn't see that they saw in high school, and it makes me kind of emotional thinking about it now. What I didn't see that my peers and fellow Winter Park Wildcats, and then my teammates at Miami, my fellow Hurricanes, and then my medical school classmates and now colleagues saw was success for them and for me in life meant empathy and connection and this genuine willingness to be vulnerable and to authenticate and see people and just to say, like, I'm here for you, I'm holding space for you, I'm listening, I want to learn from you, teach me. Living into my humility is like the beginning of my wisdom. And I've always known that. I've pursued wisdom in various ways, right? Like formal knowledge and formal passing of boards and all that allows me to practice medicine in today's world. But true wisdom for me has always been a spiritual pursuit. And when I look back at the trajectory of my path in life and the different accolades that I've gotten from other fellow human beings, and that I now allow myself to access, and I now surrender to success as I was predicted to have in high school, and then leading as a team captain that I was allowed to do in college, and then making my patients smile as I was recognized in medical school. Those were all pieces of who I am spiritually, and those were all invitations into the portal of where I sit now in mama mindset. Like this was always my path, was to deviate from formal organized things, but to live into my spirituality and to honor her who knows how that true success. I would define success in my life as knowing that self-care is never selfish. It is my form of healthcare, and nourishing myself allows me to show up as a human being and live into the dreams divinely dropped into me, and truly acknowledge the inner artist in me and the visionary and the mama and the woman in me and the innovator, and to highlight and encourage and hold space for you along your path. That is what success means to me. That's what being a healer means to me. And that's what being a leader means to me. In all of those chapters of my life where I was racing toward goals and success and metrics and passing fitness tests and passing board tests. And I ran those races, and I ran them faithfully, and I ran them with every ounce of grit and perseverance and muscle that I could muster, and many times depleting myself in every way, physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. There were many times where my spiritual tank was very low because I was so exhausted trying to chase and define myself by different metrics of success. And I have compassion for that version of myself. And she went through those trials and tribulations and chapters for a reason. And I'm grateful for that because they helped me land here. And the past 2 years have been such a surrender to re-seeing the landscape of me and the constellation of how I want to leave my legacy in this life, and how I want to show up as me, as the girl, as the 6-year-old girl who knew who she was. And so here in motherhood, I just feel magnificently chosen and spiritual and grounded, and also spreading my wings and polishing my crown. And I want and desire that for you. I want you to feel every ounce of prosperity that you're meant to experience in motherhood, in your life as a woman, as a visionary. And I want you to create the life you want to live now, and to live into that spiritual side of who you are, what it is that honors your passions, and is most reverent in the way that you show up in this beautiful world and this beautiful creation that we all get to live in. Whatever it is that allows you to feel into your spirituality and honor that and to start to live into that and have faith in that. Because when you're living in a space of faith over forcing everything, and you're just in flow, and you're releasing fear and living into faith, that is you living into your spiritual side. And that is you creating the life that you were destined to live now. And that is you asking yourself every single day, how good am I willing to let my life get? And I think the more spiritual you're willing to, the more you're willing to dip your toe and then put your foot in and then finally submerge yourself in your spirituality, the more you're going to feel that vertical alignment, the more you're going to realize that you are magnificent. You are magnetic. People are drawn to you. You are here committing to yourself for a reason. You are chosen to be a mother for a reason. You are transcendent. You are transcendent. You felt it when you delivered your baby, when you held them, as you've nurtured them, and you feel it within yourself when you get quiet and when you allow it. So thank you for the space and time to share with you my own version of what spirituality means to me and how it motivates me and propels me in life and in the space I've created with Mama Mindset. And really, Mama Mindset came to me, out of my spirituality and out of my calling to serve, and out of understanding how all of these pieces of me, as a leader and as a healer, were meant to blend and move forward. And I'm so thankful that I got quiet and listened and humbled myself and said, none of this matters if I'm not showing up in a way that feels authentic to who I am. And you helped remind me of that in all of as I've alluded to, in all of the thousands of interactions I've had with mamas. And I feel more alive, more motivated. I love coming on here and having these live chats. I feel like I'm having a newborn all over again because I'm doing these I do believe sleep is medicine, but recently I've been staying up super late recording these because they're just pouring out of my heart from a spiritual place. And I'm looking so forward to getting to know who you are spiritually and for you to get back in touch with those roots, because I think spirituality is the intersection of maybe what you've been exposed to from a religious standpoint and what has resonated with you, with the intersection of who you are as a human, as a creative, as an artist. And so it's really unique to you. And it doesn't look like anyone else, and it doesn't fit into anyone else's box. And that's what it's meant to be, your spirituality. It takes into account and it's reverent toward every aspect of who you are. And it gives you freedom and it gives you flow. And it lets you know that you're safe. You're safe to rise. So feel safe in your spirituality. Share some of the components that are important with you. Start exploring that and letting it rise within you. And I look so forward to those passions and that side of you emerging more and more. And hopefully this was enlightening for you to hear a little bit more about where I'm coming from and the flavor of my spirituality, how it has evolved over time and is still evolving. And how I feel like the canvas of it is just this graffiti of all these experiences I've had and continue to have. And I'm just open to how it changes and evolves in the future. And with you sharing your own spirituality with me. And I think in that way, it feels the most reverent. And I just feel so thankful for courage to come here and be here, and how free it feels to not feel like I have to eclipse this side of myself, but to share it as a strength. And I know that now, and I claim that now. And it is my intention to always be humble, and I don't have there's definitely no compass of right or wrong for me around this. It's a reverence, it's a home, it's a coming home, and it's a continual path of learning and humility. And so aloha mama. And this has been like a fun church for me. For me, church is in nature. It is honoring all of the divine that is within all of us and that I see clearly within every mama. And so for me, that's my church, coming in here and being a Mama Mindset with you. And I feel like we all know and recognize that in each other. So I definitely see the light in you and honor it and uplift it. And I'm excited for the next one. So tune into the next Mama Mindset. You can email me as always at aloha@mamamindset.com. I have the video versions here on my YouTube channel, Mama Mindset, and also the audio versions on my podcast, which you can access from my website or on any of the different streaming platforms of your fancy. Have a beautiful day, and may you feel that vertical alignment. May you feel chosen and know that you are a magnificent spiritual being. Namaste.